Hello, fellow bibliophiles, and welcome back to Blatantly Bookish. I thought I would do a little vlog this weekend of my Jane Austen July reading. It is Saturday morning, and this is the first weekend in a very, very long time where I don't have work or plans with friends or wedding plans or really anything to do at all. So I'm all set up in one of my favorite reading chairs facing the window, hence the strange lighting that you see. And I've already started reading a little bit of Northanger Abbey. I am very behind in my own read along. Go figure. It's okay. I've read the book before. But I just finished the first chapter of Northanger Abbey. I do plan on catching up on the read along today. And I just forgot how much I love Northanger Abbey's tone. It is just so playful and young and fresh and has all of these literary allusions and references and just pokes fun at itself in the most delightful way. So I'm really enjoying it. I have myself all set up over here, the window, with a nice cup of tea and some Cheerios for breakfast. This cup is really amazing. It's one of those gimmicky, like, bride cups that I got as a gift. But it keeps things warm forever. And it's pretty wonderful. Also, yes, I drink tea with a straw now to try and keep my teeth white. It's a real thing. If you are worried about staining your teeth, drinking out of a straw can help. Yes, dental tip of the day. I have read up to chapter 4 in Northanger Abbey, and I have met my favorite character, Mr. Tilney. Henry Tilney is just one of my favorite Jane Austen characters of all time. He really reminds me of my fiance, and I've told my fiance this many times, and he doesn't really know what I'm talking about since he's never read Northanger Abbey, but I assure him every time that it is a great compliment. And I know not everyone feels that way, and not everyone loves Henry Tilney, but just in this first meeting, we learn so much about him and get to know his character. He is so playful and so witty. He feels the need to ask the proper questions and the mundane questions to Catherine, but he makes fun of himself as he does it, and it's really cute. And then at the end, he goes, "One smirk and we may be rational again," and that's just very much his character, that he enjoys playing around and making jokes and doing these little bits, but in the end, he can be serious and he can be rational, and that makes him more respectable in the eyes of really everyone and society in general. He says hysterical things. He says to himself, or he says to Catherine, that in her journal, perhaps she'll write that she was strangely harassed by a queer, half-witted man who would make me dance with him and distress me by his nonsense. And she was like, "No, of course not." And he said, "Well, actually, then, why don't you say, I danced with a very agreeable young man, introduced by Mr. King, had a great deal of conversation with him, seems a most extraordinary genius. Hope I may know more of him. That, madame, is what I wish you to say." It's just very funny. And then Catherine keeps up. Maybe I don't even keep a journal. So they're very cute. Those are sort of the opening thoughts about Mr. Tilney. I absolutely love him. I think he is just such a great Jane Austen character. It's getting quite late for me to still be in pajamas and not dressed, but I'm enjoying Northanger so much that I have not gotten myself going today. Perhaps I will, before the next vlog, get changed, put on contacts, and make my hair a little less of a mess. But we'll see. Also, sitting by the window, yes, the lighting will change like that. Vlogging is fun. Well, I was able to tear myself away from Northanger Abbey long enough to put on proper clothing and get out of pajamas. But I'm up to chapter 8. We have met the Thorpes, and oh boy, I hate the Thorpes so much. Where do I even start? Isabella is so fake, and nobody sees this. And it's just so obvious to me how fake she is. Oh, she acts like they're best friends, and she would do anything for Catherine, and they just met. It's unbelievable. She says, I have no notion of loving people by halves. It is not my nature. My attachments are always excessively strong. And then she keeps talking about how she would, do anything for Catherine. I know you very well. You have so much animation, which is exactly what Miss Andrew wants. For I confess there is something amazingly insipid about her. So Miss Andrews is supposed to be one of her best friends, and she just completely bashes her and calls her basically boring and lacking animation, and she says she knows Catherine so well, even though they literally just met. Gotta love Isabella. And then we meet John, and he manages to just talk about his horse and show off his nice ride for a really long time. It is so distasteful and so conceited of him. And it just goes on and on. And then at the end, he bashes the book she's enjoying so much. Novels are also full of nonsense and stuff. There has not been a tolerably decent one come out since Tom Jones, except The Monk. So I haven't read The Monk, but I have read Tom Jones. It was rather dreadful, I thought. I did not enjoy it at all. The Monk I haven't read, but it is considered one of the classic Gothic novels, so I do want to get around to it at some point. I also want to get around to the Mysteries of Udolpho at some point. This book highly references the Mysteries of Udolpho, though it just talks about Gothic tropes and Gothic novels, and novels in general a lot. I actually just downloaded on my audiobook app, Hoopla, The Mysteries of Udolpho, so hopefully the narration on that is decent and I will enjoy it, but I will listen to that on my way to work over the next few weeks. It is about 30 hours long, so I might not finish it by the end of Jane Austen July, but we'll see. But I do want to talk a little bit about novels in Northanger Abbey, because that is what I love so much about this book as well. Jane Austen mounts this entire defense on novels, and she says, I'm not the kind of author who makes apologies for writing novels. I think novels are an art form, and I will not kind of skirt around or apologize for writing them. And in many ways, Northanger can be looked at as a defense of the novel. So at this time period, the novel was highly contentious as an art form. It was looked upon as kind of trashy, to be honest, but Jane Austen rightfully says it is only Cecilia or Camilla or Belinda, or in short, only some work in which the greatest powers of the mind are displayed, in which the most thorough knowledge of human nature, the happiest delineation of its varieties, the liveliest effusions of wit and humor are conveyed to the world in the best chosen language. And that is part of the beauty of novels. Novels are not real, sure, but they mirror human life and human interaction in the most real way possible. And I look at Northanger in some ways as a beautiful defense of the novel at a time period where the novel was just not a respected art form. So I'm excited to keep reading and seeing more about what happens, and hopefully catch up with my own read-along. So a lot of the day has gone by. I took a break from reading to do yoga at one point. I maybe took a little nap at one point. But I have made it halfway through Northanger Abbey, so I am completely caught up with the read-along at this point. A lot of different things to talk about and mention. First of all, I do understand why a lot of people do not like Henry Tilney. I think it's that they misunderstand him. He's always playing a part. He's always going along with a little bit of a bit. He enjoys making fun of everything and even himself at times. At one point he goes, "Perhaps the abilities of women are neither sound nor acute, neither vigorous nor keen. Perhaps they may want observation, discernment, judgment, fire, genius, and wit." But he's completely kidding. He does not really feel that way, I don't believe. And Eleanor has to come to his rescue and say, "You're going a little too far with this one. Don't let Catherine get the wrong idea," because Catherine looked grave. And he goes on and talks about expected horrors in London and conflates gothic horror with reality, and Eleanor just has to come to the rescue and put a stop to this nonsense. She says, clear your character handsomely before her. Tell her that you think very highly of the understanding of women. He says something, that is not enough, be more serious. And then at the end, she just goes, we shall get nothing more serious from him now, Miss Morland. He is not in a sober mood, but I do assure you that he must be entirely misunderstood if he can even appear to say an unjust thing of a woman at all, or an unkind one to me. Henry Tilney just does have such a wonderful sense of humor, and those who don't quite understand his humor or take him out of context would surely not like him. And then there's John Thorpe. How do I even begin to start with John Thorpe? He is a bit sadistic. He really enjoys watching Catherine squirm, and I feel like he's that kid in the playground who would be holding the magnifying glass up to all the ants and trying to light them on fire. His lack of regard for others is just astounding, and he didn't care. He just kept letting the horses go by because he had his own self-interest at heart. He did not want Catherine Morland to go back to the Tilneys when she was, otherwise engaged to them. He didn't care that he lied to her about having seen the Tilneys go elsewhere during the day so that Catherine should come with them. He only has his self-interest at heart. He only cares that he wants to spend time with Catherine, that he wants to drive her around. He does not care that that's not where she wants to be. It makes me really dislike him. Hello, so it's Sunday morning and I just took a shower and I've been reading Longbourn. I read a bit in bed last night as well, and I'm about halfway through, more or less, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I don't typically like retellings of books that I'm familiar with, but this one is quite good. It's just a whole different perspective and is less about the Pride and Prejudice story, so much as about a new cast of characters that are behind the scenes in that story. Very exciting, and I particularly like how characters that we don't like in Pride and Prejudice have a new side to them in this book. Mr. Collins is not awful to the servants, and it really shows, and the servants really want Mary to marry Mr. Collins, and that in some ways makes a lot of sense. So yes, it's a really interesting read, and I can't wait to see where the book goes. I didn't read too much more of Longbourn. I read only 1 or 2 chapters more, but speaking of characters whose perceptions of them are different, there are some characters whose perceptions of them are the same, but enhanced. Wickham, for example, is particularly slimy in this book. If you thought he was bad in Pride and Prejudice, he is somehow worse, or there's an added layer to his skeeziness in this book. He is described as a liquid, literally oozing in both charm and slipperiness. He is just constantly in the servant's way, and he has this added quality of existing in both the realm of the Bennets and the upper class, and playing up the role of he used to be a steward's son and hanging out in the kitchens with the servants, and he's often described as being in doorways and having this liminality to him where he can kind of ease between both places. That being said, he's still repulsive in both places. To the servants, he gives them coins, and just they feel very watched, and he's in their way. It's disturbing, even more so than in Pride and Prejudice, I think. I'll just read you a section. Mr. Wickham at this time grew ever more present at Longbourn. He had, it seemed, a penchant for in-between places, for lobbies, vestibules, thresholds, from where he could observe both the gabble and swarm of company and the bustle of the servantry, from where he could parcel out his Spanish money, his little bits of flattering nonsense to each woman as she passed, no matter what her age, her marital status, or her class. On one occasion, Sarah came upon him leaning in a doorway when she was approaching it with a heavy tray. His foot was pressed back against the lower panel, so the door was pushed half open. His shoulder was against the door jamb. He did not move out of her way. She did not like it, his lingering, assessing gaze. Now that she had come to be a little more knowing of herself, she knew knowingness when she saw it. He is such a predator in all senses of the word, and he's just kind of everywhere, and it's really disturbing to read. So, yes. So I am a lot further along in Longbourn. I'm about 2/3 of the way through, more. I'm up to volume 3 at this point, and they have made an interesting plot twist to the story, and one that I don't know if I necessarily agree with, but I think it's really interesting, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. Obviously, they can't change the plot of Pride and Prejudice, but they have put a little backstory in there that changes the way I view Mr. Bennet, but also makes a little bit of sense. Yeah, I usually like Mr. Bennet quite a bit, but I find him rather unsympathetic in this book. And yes, curious to see where the book goes and how that plot twist will affect the story. So it is Sunday evening, the weekend is almost over, and I have finished Longbourn. It was a really excellent reimagination of Pride and Prejudice, and my favorite part about it, I think, was that it didn't really reimagine the actual story of Pride and Prejudice. It just added a new layer to it. It added the layer of the servants, who are barely mentioned but always present and obviously have lives of their own, and those lives are explored and expounded upon in this book. And I thought it was done quite elegantly, quite lovely, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. So that will probably be the end of this little Jane Austen reading weekend vlog. I haven't had a weekend to myself in such a long time to just sit down and read and enjoy. There will be more Jane Austen related videos coming your way soon. I hope your Jane Austen July is going well and that you're having fun reading some good Jane Austen works. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you in another video soon. Bye! What up, what up?